Ubuntu.
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 Something in our African community, something that is very difficult to put into English. It is called Ubuntu. Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the essence of being human. And it says, a solitary human being is a contradiction in terms. I can't be a human being on my lonesome. I wouldn't know how to speak as a human being. I wouldn't know how to think as a human being. I wouldn't know how to walk as a human being. I have to learn from other human beings how to be human. And so Ubuntu says, my humanity is bound up in yours. I am only because you are. And we then say, a person is a person through other persons. And that we need this communal harmony if we're going to survive at all. And anger and revenge and bitterness are corrosive of this harmony. And you know it. You've experienced how when you are really angry with someone, it does something to your tum-tum. And it does something to your blood pressure. So forgiving is actually not being altruistic. You're not being nice to the other guy. When you forgive, you're actually being nice to yourself. Forgiving, apart from anything else, is good for your health.
Broad terms, Ubuntu in very broad terms is an ethic of interdependence. It's an ethic that recognizes that everything that I do has an effect on you and your well-being, and everything that you do has an effect on me and my well-being. That we, although we are different people, we are essentially interconnected. And that is a truth that is not limited to Africa or South Africa. It's a truth that is universal. We at this time were watching all kinds of horrors being perpetrated in the name of religion all over the world. And our anguish is shared with the anguish of families that look nothing like us, speak languages that we don't understand, live in ways that have no commonality with the ways in which we live. But the ethic of Ubuntu says, when a child is kidnapped, my heart hurts like the heart of the mother whose child has been stolen.
Many people regard you as a personification of Ubuntu. What do you understand Ubuntu?
In the old days when we were young, a traveler through a country would stop at a village and he didn't have to ask for food or for water. Once he stops, the people give him food, entertain him. That is one aspect of Ubuntu, but it will have various aspects. Ubuntu does not mean that people should not enrich themselves. The question, therefore, is, are you going to do so in order to enable the community around you to be able to improve? These are the important things in life. And if one can do that, we have done something very important which will be appreciated.
Okay, well back. Greetings to our Musba'u, Sabian Yassar, and greetings to our YouTube family out there. For those who do not know me, my name is Peti Sina Teptu with an A, and I've been a 30-year student teacher of the profound doctrine of the master teacher, known to us as Panabab Yananin, also known as Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, who has been teaching us our ancient culture. We identify as Wu-Sabat, and who has, in essence, dedicated his life and time to re-educating our people about our ancient culture and why it's important for us to re-identify with our ancient culture, what we call Wu-Sabat, which stands for those who make decisions based on sound right reasoning, based on the principles of Ma'at, based on the wisdom of the Hutui. It's about being in harmony with natural nature again. And we argue the challenges that we're facing all over the globe is due to the fact that we've gotten away from our ancient principles. We've gotten away from living in harmony with natural nature, living in harmony with each other. And we argue the only solution to our problem is to get back to our original way of doing things. And these are the principles of how we ruled. We were a loving people, a happy people. As you guys can see from that intro, which is what we call Ubuntu, which is about our relationships with one another and our relationships with nature itself, existence itself. And this is what we're dedicated to teaching as children and students of Wu-Sabat, as Musba'u. We're dedicated to re-educating our people about these principles so that we can begin to repair the damage that has happened to us within the last 500 years from colonization and slavery, and the damage that has happened to us in the last 6,000 years of us losing our memory of who and what we really are by natural nature. So myself being a student, this is what we are striving for, and this is what we're all about. So we welcome everybody to sit back, relax, and enjoy our discussions, and hopefully through our dialogue of question and answer, we all can grow together. Now, what we do in the beginning of all our discussions is we do our prayer systems, and our prayer systems are based on their affirmations. Their affirmations, and they're about making contact with our ancestors who have transcended, who live on other or higher dimensions. And so we definitely want to try to introduce people into our prayer systems and why we do these prayer systems. Now, also, the prayer systems are in our language, which is Musba'u. But for those, you guys can follow along. I put it up for those who know. I put it up every week for everyone to see it. And so you have the English translations there. And so the prayer systems is a ritual. It's about teaching you guys and how to develop yourself spiritually. And so, again, the prayer systems is a system of communicating with our ancestors on higher dimensions, as well as helping to recalibrate you, right? To recalibrate you, what we call your morphic resonance. And that's something we're going to touch on a little bit today. So we're going to go through it. And at the end of the prayer systems, we go into a chant and we go into a meditative state. So it's a process when you're doing spirituality, right? Because prayer is a system of communicating with your ancestors, and meditation is a system of listening to your ancestors' responses and replies. So I definitely always try to make this clear for you guys so you guys can follow along. And eventually we all will be doing this in our Sabian language. And I want to give a shout out and peace to my good brother Javon, because I see you out there and I'm glad to see you. And we'll build, definitely. But until then, let us get into our namaz, okay? Abdul Kala Namasat Ubazun America Sam and a far port. Anuki Joep Pa Ashuk in port. Wu Kala Ashuk Kawum Joep Naya. Anuki Kasaman in port. Wu port Kawum Kasaman in Naya. Anuki Wahu Ama port. Wu port Kawum Wahu Ama Naya. Nakuk Najor America Salmon in port. Wu Kabu Amashikasun. Nakuk Kador Kawan Kaleb Afaf Nakuk the Yaja port. Amar Wasu Amar the Yani Kawun Lake Baku Joep port. Anuki Yababi Nafasni. Port Kawun. Anuki. Port Kador. Nakuk Kador. Port Amu. Nakuk Amu. Lahehun Manahnun. Layahun Manahnun. Ahumata Karahum. Ahumata Karakum. Ahumata Karanun. Ahumata Juafnaya. Ahumata Nayawu Anukihum. Ye Ashuk Re'e. Asmua Jayenun. Ye Notaru Afuknun. Anunata Karaukum. Ye Notaru Afuknun. Afuknun. Ye Notaru Nun. Anun. Atun. Atun. Amun. Namazo Wahu. Ye Mufaku. Yehu. Ye Nataru. Yesaya. Ye Nataru. Yehika, Yehika, ye unataro. Ankum ata pa mufaku. Yehu, Yehu, ye unataro. Ankum ata pa mufaku. Wu anu ata kharaukum. Wu ankum ata yusanun. Yehu, Yehu, ye unataro. Akhfush muklas nun atum re'e. Yehu, Yehu, ye unataro. Namazo atu, akhfush enhu. Ye mukdam u afutnun. Ankum mana yaka laduda salafunun. Wu yasa'unun. Mana yaka sawura pa ba'a. Mana yaka kawuna ka'u. Mana yaka ata akh. Mana yaka kawuna basha wu damam. Ye nataru mukdam unun. Akfush muftad nun. Anhu kawun manza mana pa nataru. Akfush anhu. Anhu kawun baba yananan. Akfush anhu. Anhu kawun atum re'e. Akfush anhu. Anhu kawun khafush. Namazu atalu. Ye nataru salafunun. Akfutnun mana pa mujwa'u. Akfutnun mana tag huwan. Ye nataru akfutnun. Mana saya khayara. Akfutnun afuknaya. Akfutnun akfutnaya. Ye nataru nun. Namazu rabu pa tashun. Nakuk talub tashun bi pa nataru. Mana pa la'an lawi tananu. Kala ramna atni ata laha pa nataru. Wu kala namaso atni ata laha kayad iyatun laya pa nataru. Pa sawat wu pa tara. Panan safa kawun. Pa sawat wu pa tara. Zi kawuna nazula laha ankum. Mana saba'at Wu-Sabat. Ama haday anun wu shafayun. Mana salafukum wu nataru. Aju laya nafashukum. Afuk shanah kawunkum. Pa sawat wu pa tara. Pa hadayan wu pa shafay. En nun tawa ankum. Laha panan shafay wu alaj. En nun tawa ankum laha tim nasuinun. En nun tawa ankum laha ashukuma. Ankum ata salafunun. En nun ata kharaukum. En nun talub nasakuma. En nun talub nasakuma. En so nun sayim nataru. En so nun salafunun. En nun ata munwapu. Anun. Atun. Atun. Amun. Ye nataru nun. Ye mufta'u. Ye nataru. Ye atum re'e. Ye natar. Ye nun. Ye natar. Ye nutat. Ye natata. Ye ha. Ye natar. Ye hata. Ye natata. Ye kak. Ye natar. Ye kakta. Ye natata. Ye amun. Ye natar. Ye amunta. Ye natata. Ye umufkemu ye. Ye nataru. Ye atum. Ye natar. Ye shawah. Ye natar. Ye tafaf natat. Ye natata. Ye sabab. Ye natar. Ye natat. Ye natata. Ye ashtat. Ye natata. Ye asar. Ye natar. Ye nabata hata. Ye natata. Ye sitak. Ye natar. Ye hara. Ye natar. Natar shalil pa meye. Ye hatu yanata, ye nakta yanatata, ye ha haratu yanata, natara shalil panawar, ye nafatum yanata, ye mantu yanata, ye babti yanata, ye sakhamta yanatata, ye hata harata yanatata, ye baai bish yanata, ye fa yanata, ye basa yanatata, ye imhata yanata, natara shalil pa hawe, ye enhu yanata, ye mata yanatata, ye mahat yanatata, ye khafre yanata, ye miskanata, ye miskanat. Yanatata, ye rayeta, yanatata, ye khantamitiyu yanata, ye hika'a yanatata, ye natata yanatata, ye ma'at yanatata, ye renenta yanatata, ye she yanatata, ye sasha yanatata, ye mafta yanatata, natara shalil pa taha, ye sabak yanata, ye nap yanata, ye khnum yanata, ye khanash yanata, ye fanun yanata, ye siye yanata, ye hakta yanatata, ye amash yanata, ye saratu yanata, ye atum re yanatata, ye tahutu yanata, ye fawrat yanatata, ye sakata yanatata, ye ha yanata, ye naheb ka'a yanata, ye saka yanata, ye ba'a yanata, ye aka yanata, ye imharata yanatata, ye wapawata yanata, ye sakahatata yanatata, ye merita sakata yanatata, ye sayeta yanatata, ye garata yanatata, ye sa inu yanata, ye bahata yanatata, ye khanemta yanatata, ye manakta yanatata, ye khamam yanata, ye mahatu yanata, ye kabef sinanafaf yanata, Ye da mata afaf yanata. Ye merita yanata, ye nasat yanata. Ye mdadata yanata, ye nakakbata yanata. Ye sakata yanata, ye nakta yanata, ye dadad yanata, ye tum yanata, ye wahu yanata, ye yasas yanata, ye naku yanata, ye afterward yanata, ye satat yanata, ye sakatu yanata, ye ma'at yanata, ye nana yanata, ye mnuet yanata, ye satatu yanata, ye mukdata yanata, ye rahashafaf yanata, ye maratu yanata, ye amun re yanata, ye hu ata kale jawef baot nun re tun re tun re mun re yeah Jennifer. Okay. All right. So now, guys, just as a recap, when we're doing the prayer system, the namasis, if you notice at the end, I did what we call the unctwi symbol. Now, the Christians do that Christian course. Obviously, you don't do that. You do the unctwi symbol, basically. And that symbol represents making a transition from this realm to the higher dimensions. So that is something that we do. And you guys can see the unctwi, which is behind me, right? For those who can see that symbol there. So that is something that we do. So we definitely don't do that Christian cross that you see our people doing all the time because they just don't know any better. Obviously the cross is a symbol of death, unfortunately. Our symbol is a symbol of transition from one state to a higher state of existence. The other thing is at the end of the prayer system, if you notice, we went into a chanting. Okay, so chanting, that's a very important system because keep in mind, our prayer system is about recalibrating what we call your morphic field, your energy field that surrounds your body, that's all around you. And so it's a process. And then once you finish the chanting, you're actually supposed to go into a meditated state. So the rituals, our rituals that we do, that's a system of spiritual development, right? And remember, our prayer systems, we're supposed to do that 4 times a day, 9 a.m., 3 p.m., 9 p.m., and 3 a.m. for those who can wake up at that time, okay? And so but again, it's about calibrating, and it's a system of teaching us to link up with each other, right? Because we have that ability to be able to communicate with each other spiritually, regardless of the distance. Regardless of the distance, we have that ability to communicate with one another spiritually, right? On the spiritual realms. And these are the things that we're going to be talking about and learning how to develop those things, right? Because eventually we guys supposed to be doing this prayer systems together. And once we begin to link up and harmonize, when we're saying the chants together, it will sound as one tone. It will sound as one tone, and you would have an spiritual feeling because you'll feel the energy of everyone, right? And it'll feel like you're being lifted up. And so these are a lot of our rituals, and these are things that the master teacher have taught us how to do over the years. These chant rituals. So we eventually will get into these things once again. Okay, so what we do every week is also go over our core principles of Wu-Sabat. So I definitely want to go through that for those who are familiar with it. I'm always telling you guys, you have to memorize these core principles because it's supposed to be a part of your everyday lifestyle as being a Sabian, right? And for those who are new, it's to introduce anyone who's new, who's here or who's watching this discussion recorded. You know what we stand for as Sabians, the core principles of what our culture is all about as being African people, right? So the first principle that we stand on is Ashak, which it stands for the power of love, right? That nothing can exist without Ashak, right? Ashak is the spirit force that grew all existence, and our whole goal is to tap back in to Ashak, the power of love. And I'm sorry, I didn't even share my screen, so let me go back and do that so you guys can see. Let's see. Right, so here you go. So you see the first principle, right? The core principles of Wu-Sabat and Wu-Nawap, and then Ashak is principle number 1. Principle number 2 is resurrection. It's about transforming ourselves back into gods and goddesses back once again, opening our third eye. Our third eye has been closed now as a nation of people for the last 6,000 years. So it's when we lost our memory and our abilities. And this is one of the things we're teaching in Wu-Sabat on how to restore yourself, how to restore yourself spiritually and reopen your third eye. So for those who watched our discussion on resurrection, I recommend watching it again, as I always do. And for those who haven't watched that discussion, definitely watch it. The next principle is the wisdom of the Hutui and Ma'at. For all those who know, we did lectures on both of these discussions on principles. And the Hutui stands for our mind, the divine mind, and Ma'at stands for divine order. So definitely watch the discussions on that. Fourth principle is relationships, right? Relationships is about we live of, for, and by each other as Musba'u, as Sabians, as African people. And that's what today's discussion is going to be about, our relationships as a people, right? What is it all about? And why is that so important? Number 5 is morphic resonance and matrix. Morphic resonance deals with vibration, sound, color, frequency. These are the harmonic tones that grew existence itself and created what we call matrices. Okay. And the next one is soul and spirit. Your soul is your emotional body, your spirit is your life force. We did a discussion on that. Next one is Leviathan equals moon culture, aka religion, aka Western culture. We did a discussion on that, guys. Number 8 is health. What is health? Health, first point of health is a positive mind. We always talk about that. You must be positive. You're not healthy if you're not positive. And second principle, especially as African people, we require a great deal of sunlight. Without the sun, there's no life. Our body is 70% water, so obviously we must have water. Fasting is a part of health. One day you eat, another day you fast. Fasting should be anywhere from 1 to 2 days out of the week. Herbal diet is something Dr. Sabre has always taught us to do. Exercise, right? Exercise is about making sure your body is vibrating at its healthy state. It allows the blood to flow effectively from the toes to the brain. Exercise is crucial. And rhythmic breathing, learning how to rhythmic breathe is learning how to tap into your energy field that's all around you and inside your body, okay? Meditation and concentration exercises. This is all about developing oneself spiritually, right? Prayer and chanting. Now, health is in 2 parts, physical and spiritual. Physical and spiritual. Unfortunately, our people in this society is not taught anything for spiritual health. And that has to do with a lot of our mental problems and a lot of the challenges that we're dealing with because we've never developed ourselves spiritually. And it's all a part of health. So it's important. And number 9 is Pa'ut. Pa'ut stands for all existence, the creative force. Instead of saying creative force, we say Pa'ut. And Pa'ut is based on existence, is based on what we call the Smat, which stands for the cycles of nature. And the energy, the creative energies of existence is Ach, right? We call it Ach, the creative energies, which is called ether. And then next is the goals of students of Wu-Sabat. For those who choose to become a student of Wu-Sabat, you have 3 goals for those who choose, right? Goal number 1 is to raise the self. Goal number 2 is to fight Leviathan. And goal number 3 is the work to build Sabbatia. We must recreate our own lands again. So going back to goal number 1, raise the self is what I talk about each week. What Christians talk about you must be born again. And that's basically giving up the old culture for a new culture, right? New Wu-Sabat is your new culture, and you're giving up your old culture here of Western culture, right? So it's about living that culture. Your first goal is to correct your name by choosing a Sabaean name. So once you choose, the culture Wu-Sabat, you choose a Sabaean name, making it known to all. You must correct how you look and dress. You must learn to speak our language, Sabaean. You must study our doctrine every day. You must practice and master our daily rituals, and you always must be positive. Can't call yourself Sabaean if you're not positive, right? Now, fighting Leviathan. This includes working to free Patabat Yunanan, the master teacher, promoting Wu-Sabat to all, and become a student teacher and fight the 5 strongest weapons of Leviathan, which are lust, lies, deception, slander, and gossip, right? That's the war we're fighting against, which is making our people so negative, okay? And then the last goal is we work to support each other in business goals. We help each other reach positive goals. We help to build our government. And we must set up a landing zone for Panatharu in Africa, which means we need land in Africa that would be supported by an African government. So that's important. And Ashak is the key to accomplish all our goals. There's no way you're going to accomplish our goals without the power of love. That's how we get our strength and our power, is learning to tap into the spirit force of Ashak. Okay. And then what does it mean to be a Sabaean once you are a Sabaean, right? A Sabaean is someone who is thoughtful and cares, someone who's helpful and honest, someone who's responsible and hardworking, someone who demands justice, someone who is righteous, someone who is positive and cheerful, someone who is loving and peaceful, someone who is clean, and someone who is kind and considerate. Okay, so now that you guys know that, we will go here and let's see. We have some discussions or some conversations in our chat. Let's see. Okay, Rahobat to everybody again. We love you all. Let's see who. T Tiger. So see, is this the Kemetic principles with following the laws of Ma'at? Because I give honor to the Trinity, Asar, Aset, and Hiru, and I call upon their energies for joy and peace and whatever I desire. Okay, I am developing, right? That's what's up. Yeah, I mean, okay, so yes, Wu-Sabat, the principles, the core principles that we live by. Again, everything is about being a better you, right? That's what our whole goal is about, being a better us. Everybody in our culture is working to be better, to reach your potential. We have dormant potentials. You have a dormant potential. And it's a dormant spiritual potential. We have dormant abilities, dormant powers as African people. And the goal is about developing yourself again, right? The goal is reaching that potential. And so that's what our principles are all about, is educating you to live according to these principles so that you can develop yourself spiritually once again and reopen your third eye. That's the whole goal here. And in order to open one's third eye, there's a set of cultural behaviors you have to live by, right? And that's what I'm trying to educate you guys about, all of these principles, if one is to follow these things. Because listen, as you should know, opening your third eye, or for those who don't know, obviously opening your third eye is not easy. That's extremely difficult. Okay. But it's not impossible. It's about putting and I talked about this today with someone. It's about dedicating yourself the same way a professional athlete would dedicate themselves to their craft. That's really what it's about. What stops most of us from reaching the goal of opening one's third eye is the distractions of life. This is what's happened to me. It's the distractions of life. We get so caught up, and that's where the challenge becomes to play. And this is one of the reasons why the master teacher always taught us to live as a community, because living as a community, right? Living of, for, and by each other, it made it easier for us to develop our goals. But as you know, or for those who don't know, the government attacked our community and took our land from us to stop our progress. And so it makes it harder because now all of us are doing it individually rather than trying to do it as a community, right? And living as a body of people. So, these are the challenges, unfortunately. But we will do it. We will get it done. In fact, that's what today's discussion is all about, relationships, right? About the community. So as you guys see here on my screen, today's discussions, relationships are our greatest commodity, right? They like to teach you that gold, platinum, diamonds, silvers, commodities. No, your commodity is each other, your relationships with each other. That's what Ubuntu is all about, right? The African principle of Ubuntu. It's about relationships, community relationships. That is our strongest weapon. So let's get started. So I have here a question. We live by rule 1 of natural nature, which is preservation of self and kind, right? Preservation of self and kind. That teaches us that your goal is to preserve yourself, right? Because that's the one common denominator that anyone who is alive, their desire is to preserve themselves for those who are alive. But now, if you're alive, it's not to preserve yourself, but it's also preserve your kind, because you wouldn't exist if your kind did not exist, right? You couldn't exist unless your mother and father existed. And that was a core principle that we understood as African people. I only exist because my mother and father exist. And they only exist because their mother and father exist. That's what Ubuntu is trying to teach you. You exist because your bloodline, your race exists. So that's extremely important. Then if you notice, I have here, you are a clone of your mother and your father. In our language, Sabian, mother is Mudutet and father is Mudad, right? Now, you're just a copy of your parents, right? Because your mother had to give up a cell, a single cell, her egg, and your father had to give up a single cell, which is his sperm. And those two cells came together to create one cell. And that one cell created us. And what happened? We became, that cell multiplied into a physical body. So we're nothing but a copy of our parents. An exact copy, in fact. Okay. Question. T. Tyre says, are Sabian and Arabian culture that worship Sabre, and where do I get a name? That's what's up. We're going. Okay, I'll address that. The Arabian Sabre. Yes, Sabre, ancient Sabre was in southern Arabia, but that's actually Sabre really was in Ethiopia. The portion that was in Arabia was basically an offshoot of Ethiopia. Okay, so Sabre in southern Arabia, which today is basically, Yemen, those locations, right? And it was connected to Ethiopia. But that's a long discussion all to itself, trying to explain the history there. And as far as getting a name, I can recommend you. We have a naming book also that can help you with that. But let me go on. So if you look, I said the question, right? We live by rule 1, right, which is of natural nature, which is preservation of self and kind, and which means you're a clone of your mother and father. Said down. So now here I go on to say this: like all other species of nature who share the same spirit force, we are supposed to look the same, act the same, and think the same. One race equals one species whose job it is to serve each other. You have the memory of your parents and all your ancestors in your bloodline, for our DNA is a recorder, which is why you see people of the same bloodline who behave the same and look the same. If you study the near-death experience, people talk about how they are shown their whole life from baby to adulthood. This happens because your DNA is recording all your experiences and transferring them to your oversoul by way of your third eye. So if you refer to a book, Actual Facts, number 46, the master teacher had wrote, and I talk about this book a lot because I highly recommend you guys to get it and study it because it's a profound piece of literature. But going back to this particular book, Actual Facts number 46. If you go to this is page 18 and 19, we talk about this, okay? That we're recording every aspect of your existence from the time you came out of your mother's womb. Your DNA is recording everything. And we used to have access to this memory bank that we lost. Once your third eye closed, we lost access to this memory bank. You understand, guys? So let me read this here. It goes on to say, and they know that they were cursed with barasi, which is leprosy. They spread all the tapal world, maraz, at diseases and viruses. They are the root of all chaos, war, bloodshed, rape, stealing, and invasions of the other races on Taha. He's talking about the Mukasu, aka the Caucasian, right? Goes on to say, and all they put out in history is wrong, and genetics doesn't work as they have taught. This solar system is not how they portrayed in Safa'at books. Nothing they said turns out to be true. Instead, humanoid destiny being determined by Yakhasat, genes. It now is known that genes are also guided by what science now calls epigenetics. Okay? Your genes grow in a soup of resonant fields created by Foucault thoughts and intentions. And for example, anything that touches your lisan, your tongue, is computed. You must know the term morphic resonance. That is, self-organizing systems inherit a memory from previous similar systems and things you taste. It becomes part of your yakasat, your genes. Morphic resonance is to know that the rules of nature are much more like tamalat, actions, fakor, thinking, and sha'ar, feelings. What you are and what you remember is not only stored in your damag, brain, yet in every cell of you. Your very demand, blood cells, is also keeping sajalat, records of your life and living, which is influenced and passed on by your salafu, your ancestors, the strongest within the past 4 generations of some 30 relatives on both sides from your mudatat, mother, and mudad, father. A biological inheritance does not change unless you change them. Alter the divine code in your yakasat, genes, or an epigenetic modification of the chromosomes, DNA, or genes. So here, he's saying this. If you go back to this right here, paragraph 64, says the strongest within the past 4 generations of some 30 relatives. 15 relatives on your mother's side, 15 relatives on your father's side. Those are the strongest genes that in fact, your connection to those particular ancestors are your strongest link. That's what I was saying before. The strongest connection is your mother's mother, right? Your strongest connection to your ancestor is your mother's mother and that side of the family. That's not to say you're not connected to your father's side. You're equally connected to your father's side, but your mother's side is the strongest because remember, you come from your mother. She's the one who grew you inside her womb. So we're nothing but the essence of our mother genetics, literally, right? And so we naturally have a strong connection to our mothers and her mother and her mother's mother. But here's the thing about our genes. You can tap into your genetic code that goes back 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 10,000 years. We knew there's science to do that and we forgot. Okay, so another question by T Tiger. Am I developing right? Yes, you are, T Tiger. And Sabine, yep. Okay. What else we got? I hear opening the third eye shouldn't be done if your heart is heavy because you may activate the negative within you. Is that true? Yeah, that's what I keep saying, right? I said, as a Sabian, you can't even call yourself a Sabian if you're not, in the positive mind. So that's step 1, right? And I said, our whole goal is about becoming one with Ashak, which is the forces of existence. It's the power of love. You can't go into spiritual work. I told you guys this before, and it's very important, you guys, to keep this in mind. You know, spirituality is a two-edged sword, like anything else. There's a positive side to it, and there's a negative side to it. Okay? But it's not an option. You have to develop yourself spiritually. You just have to know how. The problem is we're part of a culture, Western culture, that all it does is indoctrinates people with the negative mind. You know, in fact, English itself, majority of the words in English are negative. They're not even positive. The language itself makes us negative. That's why we teach to learn to speak our language, Sabian. Okay. So it's very important. So now let me get back to our discussion. I'm talking about our genetics. Your genetics record. Your genetics is a recorder. Your genes is a recorder. And we used to knew how to tap into our genes. That we must relearn how to do this, guys. Okay, so let's get back to our notes. Okay, another question, Nanya Al. Michael Tillinger has done a lot of research in South Africa. He has these circular stones, but he does not know the purpose. They generate an electric field, etc. Are they the me stones? No, I don't know. They're not the me stones. The me stones are actually recorded diffs, as the master teachers explained to us. They're like a CD actually, but some is, you know, a more advanced version of it, you know, that the masters use those discs to record things. But you're not going to be able to find them here on Earth to be able to pick up like an artifact. So I don't think that's not what they are. Okay. All right. Oh, you know what? Let me show you guys this. We're talking about you being your genetics recording. This is I talked about how, you know, a lot of people who have the near-death experience, they talk about having what they call a life review, where they see their whole life flash in front of them, right? And I think that's extremely important, because that kind of gets into the reason why you're able to see that is because you're recording. You can record everything that happens to you. So check this out. I think this is interesting, guys.
My life flashes in front of me, as big as the sky. And it was right then and there, God and I began to look at my life. One of the most life-changing aspects of this experience for many people is what they call their life review. They watch their life replayed in this panoramic vision of every scene, and they see the ripple effect of their little acts of kindness or the things that weren't so kind. They come back knowing that how we treat each other, how we love each other, that's what matters most.
My life was laid bare for all its good and bad. And Jesus was showing me this and saying, look at how that event impacted this person, that impacted that person, that impacted that person.
22.2% of near-death experiencers have a fascinating phenomenon known as life review. At this time, they may see a part or even all of their prior life. It's often described as flashing before them like on a screen.
I saw an image that flashed into my mind, and I was 11 years old, and I was kneeling at a church summer camp. Man, I was sincere.
I was reliving every moment. It was almost as we were watching the film of my life.
Okay. All right. So that's just to kind of get some insight on that subject that I'm trying to talk about, that we record. You record every aspect of our lives. Our DNA is a recorder. And people who have these near-death experiences, because now once you because these people will go out of body. Once you're able to go out of body, you will have access to your records. Now, there are people who can train themselves. That's what we teach, to train yourself how to go out of body before you physically die. This is a real ability that we have, and then you'll have access to your genetic memory, right? And it's for an education purposes. That's what these people are saying when they had their near-death experiences. They were being educated about their choices, their decisions, right? Things that they may want to change in their life. And so it's a phenomenal ability that we used to have that we've lost. Now they do talk about, there's some people, walking around. You guys could look this up. In fact, they record 3 women who in this country, they can recall every experience of their lives. They have complete memory recall. You guys could look that up. It's online. But they have complete memory recall. And again, this is an ability of ours. But let's go on. So, question: if what you are saying is true, then why don't we recall none of these memories? Answer: we are under the spell of Leviathan, which is blocking our recall abilities. We also mixed our bloodline with other races that has altered our morphic residency, which blocks our third eye from opening. Without access to your third eye, you have no way of memory recall. In order for your third eye to open, your cells of your body must be in harmony with your spirit. In order for your cells to be in harmony with your spirit, you must be at your body's optimum weight. Your cells must be vibrating at the same rate as your spirit, and your mind must be at one with the energy forces that are inside and around you, right? So this is a process of developing yourself spiritually, and that's why we do the rituals, guys. That's why we do the prayers. That's why we do the chants. It's about recalibrating yourself. Okay. So it's extremely important. Question: if unity is our greatest weapon, then why have we not come together as a united people? Answer: Black people cannot unify as long as we are under the spell of Leviathan. The spirit force Leviathan is the reason why we are so negative, have so much doubt, fight each other, have uncontrollable lust, love to slander, love to gossip, love Caucasian culture and image, which is why Black women love blonde hair so much, unfortunately. Negative minds can never work together to accomplish positive goals. I repeat, negative minds can never work together to accomplish positive goals. One more time. Negative minds can never work together to accomplish positive goals. This is one of the reasons why so many of our organizations, they fall apart, because of the negative minds within our organization. We're constantly betraying one another. If you notice, just about most Black organizations who try to become strong and powerful to help Black people have been destroyed by somebody within their own organization, family, friends, whatever. We basically self-destroy ourselves. And why is that? The negative mind. That person gets possessed by 62 spirits that make them go against their own race. And if you ever ask these people, why do they betray their race? They always got a great reason why they do it. The problem is they betray their own people to another race. I'm like, okay, fine. If you're mad with the leadership or something, how do you go to our an opposing race, our adversary? Because when our adversary comes in, he's going to destroy everybody, which is what they do. And so what allows our people to do that? They get possessed, the negative mind. And so you can't do no spiritual work until you get rid of that negative essence that's within us, right? Question. Let's see. Does Pell Beans people come back in physical after they discover? What's that? Duo? Oh, die over and over again. Oh, let's do that again. Does Pell Beans? Okay, this is a question from Minnie Cooper. Got it. Does Pell Beans or people come back in physical after they die over and over again? Okay, yes. And that's something we talked about before. Caucasian people, they actually, their path is one or two paths, right? One is they will either reincarnate, right? Or they become a disembodied spirit. That's what people talk about. A ghost, I see ghosts. All a ghost is a spirit who could not reincarnate because they weren't strong spiritually enough to inhabit a body again. and so they get locked out and they can't come back, and so that's kind of what happens. So yes, everybody has reincarnation cycles. As we teach, you get up to 24,000 reincarnation cycles. That includes all races. Get up to 24,000 reincarnation cycles to fix themselves, to repair themselves for spiritual development. Let's see, question from Zamal. Where can I get books on learning the language? Having trouble with the language. Well, first thing I recommend is we have some of our language books on Scribe, right? So we have some of them on there. And then I got to get you guys access to a bookstore. That's why I also one of the things I always ask people, give me your location where you guys are at. That helps to know where you guys are located. And to maybe recommend a particular bookstore you guys can connect with, or I got to find it online. That's something I'm working on myself. Eventually, we'll be able to provide the books for you guys online. Hopefully we'll get to that point. Okay. All right. So now, next question. How can we overcome our negative minds so that we can work together? Answer. Black people are children of the sun, which means we must create a culture where we are spending most of our times outdoors. We must use our willpower to always be positive, because the job of 6 ether is to always put doubt in your mind in order to put you in a negative state. Anything practiced for 30 to 90 days creates a habit, because you are rewriting your brain synapse flow. Now, this is very important, guys. How do you create a habit, right? First of all, there's nothing you can do physically without thinking about it, right? So there's nothing you can do physically without thinking about it. Your habits, the habits that we have, whatever we do on a consistent basis, we have what they call electrical impulses in our brain. And what happened? When you create a habit, that electrical impulse becomes very strong. That's why a lot of things that we normally do is automatic, like put on our clothes, wash up, brush your teeth. These are things you don't have to think about. You can automatically do it because your brain is wired for that. But something you've never done before, it doesn't have a strong electrical connection in the brain. That's why it takes about 30 days to build that electrical synapse up within the brain, where the beginnings of becoming a habit. That's how you either create a habit or get rid of a habit. So let's say you have a bad habit like smoking, right? And that's a strong impulse. That's because you have a strong electrical signal in your brain that's wired for you to have that desire. But now, as you take one day off and you don't do it, that signal is weak. You take 2 days off, that signal gets weaker. You take 3 days off, that signal gets even weaker. After 10 days, after 20 days, after 30 days, that signal will decrease almost into nothingness. And that's how you break a habit, a bad habit, and that's how you create a new habit. Okay? So question. Please, I want to get the physical books. Okay. Yes, I'll be working on that for you guys with the books. That's important. Question from let's see. Why in some African spiritualities do they sacrifice lives as rituals? Because I said this before. We have spiritual ancestors who are positive, and we got spiritual ancestors who are negative. As African people, we have ancestors who are positive spiritually, and we have ancestors who are not so positive, who are negative. Africans who are sacrificing are in contact with those negative spirit forces who require blood. Africans who are sacrificing, they are in contact with our negative side of our ancestors who are asking for blood. Those are the spirit forces we do not identify with as Sabians. We only communicate with our higher spiritual family who are positive. The positive ones do not ask for no darn sacrifices. So let's keep that in mind. That's extremely important. Okay. And understand this, guys. The only reason why we even contact our ancestors who are spiritually for guidance and advice, but we too are spirit beings. We're incarnated spirit beings. And that's why we teach how to redevelop yourself spiritually, so that you can make physical contact with your ancestors who existed on the higher dimensions. These are our abilities. This is in our abilities to do. And that's one of the things why we teach what we teach. And so why, and the reason, if I read your question right, and when you say why some African spirituals do they sacrifice, it's because of the negative spirits, and so how can I say, people, first of all, the question is, why do people even do that in rituals? They do that for guidance and help. And so negative spirits will ask for sacrifices to assist them, right? And so we don't ask for spirits to assist us based on us giving them sacrifices. That's very important to know. And you don't need it anyway. You don't need that kind of help. You can get that help from the positive ones, and you can get that help from your own self as you develop yourself spiritually. Because a lot of stuff that people be asking for spiritually, like from spirit ancestors, you don't need to ask them for those things. You have the power within your own self. You just forgot how to use your own personal power. And that's what we're trying to teach in Wu-Sabat, guys. You have your own personal power. Very important to know that. Question: how do you access the subconscious mind? Oh, I'm sorry, Allison. Question: is that why fasting is so important? I skipped another one? Okay, I'm sorry. Question: T Tiger, why not put the books on Amazon or eBay? For one, our organization is a big organization. Two, I'm not in charge of our organization, so I don't have control on how we distribute the books. Right, our headquarters is out of Brooklyn, New York. Just so you guys know that. Our headquarters is out of Brooklyn, New York. We have a bookstore in Brooklyn, New York, and you guys can contact Brooklyn directly to get access to books. I will get you the contact information, and they will directly send you guys the book. So I just want to let you know, but I have no control on how the books are distributed. So that's important. Okay. Okay. All right. So good. So Danielle, let's see. Question: how do you access the subconscious mind? How do you first, Allison, that question was a good question that you asked. Okay. Let me go back. Let's do Nanya. How do you access the subconscious mind? Okay. All right. So all right, first let's understand the subconscious mind, right? So we talked about this before. Our mind, you have three levels of your mind. You have your conscious mind, which all of us are now communicating with each other. That's our conscious waking mind. Then you have your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is actually controlling your involuntary systems of the body, right? It's controlling your heart rate, your blood flow, your circulatory system, your respiratory system. That's your subconscious mind. In fact, your subconscious mind go into action when you go to sleep. When your conscious mind shuts down, the subconscious boots up, and that's the one that's making sure you breathe at night. It's your subconscious mind. Then you have what is known as your superconscious mind. Your superconscious mind is what your oversoul. That's your oversoul. Your oversoul is what's in control of everything, right? So now, how do you tap into your subconscious mind to get to your oversoul? Here's what I was trying to say. First things first. All of the rituals, all of the things I was trying to teach you guys. Okay. Let me go back. Let me go back to the core principles. When you go to the core principle number 8, right? Which is about health. It says positive mind, right? First things first. Always be positive, right? Based on the power of love. Sunlight. Your body needs a lot of sunlight. As Africans, we need a lot of sunlight. That's important. Trust me. Water. Fasting is key. Now, here's the deal. Your body, first of all, you have to identify what is your natural weight. Your natural weight will be based on your height. Literally, your natural weight will be based on your height, because here's the key. Because of the diet, we all eat this Western diet, and Western diet is based on 4 food categories. Flesh, right? that's flesh. Processed food, which is all that candy that we eat, potato chips, whatever crap they make. Starch, we either eating rice, pasta, or potatoes, and dairy products, right? Which is butter, milk, cheese, whatever. The poison diet of the Caucasian. Those are the 4 food groups that they feed everybody in this country. In fact, you can't go to no restaurant without being served flesh or some some starch or some processed food like the soda they give you, and some dairy product, right? The butters, the cheese, blah blah blah. So that's a poison diet. So here's the thing, guys, your body is electrical. The human body runs off electricity. I repeat, the human body runs off electricity. You guys got to understand that. Okay. Now, your spirit feeds off the electrical flow of the body. Your spirit lives off your blood. The electrical flow is in your blood. Your blood is electrically charged. Your spirit lives off of your blood. That's why if you shoot somebody, unfortunately, and their heart stops pumping the blood, or the blood stops flowing through the heart, the spirit leaves the body because the electrical flow stops, and so the spirit can't feed on the body, and that's what we call death. Okay. So now, if you understand, you have to have a strong electrical flow for the spirit in order to the spirit to live in the body. Now, the diet that you eat, the diet that we all eat, okay, it creates mucus in the blood. And this is what Dr. Sabre's been trying to teach for years. When it creates mucus in the blood. Now, what does the mucus does? Which it creates fat. It blocks the electrical flow of the bloodline. It slows down your electrical flow. And when your electrical flow slows down, it makes your spirit weaker. So in order to connect with yourself spiritually, you have to reverse that process. That means that you can't be eating. Most of the time it's due to overeating, right? But you have to have a diet. That's why Dr. Sabre says have a herbal diet, because he always taught eat electrical food, right? Now, although he didn't know, Dr. Sabre didn't know about the stuff I'm telling you guys about the science of spirituality, but he had science, and I knew him personally. But here's the thing. Excuse me. My point is that what you guys have to learn to do is to be able to, how can I say, connect with this energy that's around your body and inside your body. Now, this is a process. As I go through these discussions each week, we're going to get deeper and deeper into these discussions. So I'm just kind of trying to give you guys some insight about it, right? I don't want to get too caught up in this, but let me go into another question. Let's see. Asking, is fasting important to build your spiritual right mind, teaching, and detox from 6 ether? How should we fast? That's right. Fasting, when we fast, it's the water fast. Okay. So what happens is for 24 hours, you just drink water. Okay. For 24 hours, you just drink water. Now, here's the thing. If you find yourself having a hard time to fast and you have a strong desire to eat, that's because that's the 6 ether spirit trying to stop you from fasting. That lets you know you really need to learn how to fast. Right. And we all are suffering from that. All of us. Okay, myself included. Those 6 ether forces that in our blood are strong, and it stops us from doing positive things. Okay, because those spirit forces know you're trying to purge them out. That's how you purge out 6 ethers out of your blood, out of you, because you starve them. They feed off the food we eat. And so when you start doing fasting rituals and spiritual rituals, they basically have to flee from your body. Right? They have to flee from your body. That's very important, okay? Provided you're doing it with the positive mind, with the right intentions, okay? Now, spiritual work, you have to keep this in mind. You have to do spiritual work for the right intentions. What is the right intentions? The right intentions is let's go back here. I said right here, what does it mean to be a Sabian, okay? What does it mean to be a Sabian? This is no joke, guys. A Sabian is someone who is thoughtful and cares, someone who is helpful and honest, someone who's responsible and hardworking, someone who demands justice, someone who is righteous, someone who is positive and cheerful, someone who is loving and peaceful, someone who is clean, and someone who is kind and considerate. So the whole point of you restoring your spiritual powers is to be a servant of the creative force. You don't supposed to be doing it for your own personal selfish reasons. You'll get yourself possessed if you're trying to go into spiritual work for selfish reasons. I warn you all, you don't do spiritual work for selfish reasons. You're only developing yourself to restore yourself spiritually because you want to serve. Our job is to serve humanity. That's why I do these discussions every week. I'm not getting paid for it. My job is to help others. That's what it means to be a Sabaean. Your job is to serve. And as you serve nature, nature will serve you. Nature will give you all of the powers and abilities you need to assist nature in that work. Because remember, our ancestors, our culture is based on Ma'at. What is Ma'at? Ma'at is about balance. And our job is to maintain the balance throughout the universe, the multiverse. And so you need a lot of abilities to do that. And that's why you're doing your spiritual work, to redevelop yourself so that you can be a better servant of the creative force. So I warn you, 6 ether people do spiritual work for their own selfish needs and gains. So I'm warning you, do not have that kind of mind because it'll backfire on you. Okay, guys? That's important. Let's see. Question. Scribes is app where I can use to look at free books. Yeah, Scribes is. You can look at books on Scribes and it's free on there, guys. Question. Most Tuesdays I fast, so my spirit is getting fed super spiritual food from you. Okay. From you. Is that correct? Wait, that's exactly. Yeah, that's good, Allison. Fasting. In fact, Tuesdays and Thursdays are our fasting days. Tuesdays and Thursdays are traditionally our fasting days in our organization, just so you guys know. Tuesdays and Thursdays are traditionally our fasting days. Okay. So that's a good habit. Oh, and another day you're supposed to fast on is your birthday, right? That's hard for a lot of people because that's usually when you're eating a lot. But that's something. Your birthday is supposed to be a spiritual event, right? Your birthday is supposed to be a spiritual event, you know? So it's important to know that. So let's get back to our discussion. Question. Is there anything wrong with trying to use money to solve our problems? Answer. Money does not equal power. Positive relationships equal power. Relationships built on money only last as long as the money lasts. But relationships built on bloodline, race, and culture last forever and transcends dimensions, which is why our ancestors are connected to us. People are the power. The more people, the more power. Western culture used money to bring people together to create power. We teach bringing people together based on race, culture, and bloodline makes for the most powerful force there is. That is why the forces that be spend most of its time creating division among the people. United we stand, divided we fall. Okay? That's extremely important. In fact, further, now look at this. I'm going to show you this guy, Dr. Greg Braden, did this discussion that I think is extremely powerful on this. Listen to this, guys.
I'd like to welcome you to this very special presentation of Missing Links, the deep truth of our origin, history, destiny, and fate. We all have beliefs and expectations about what's true and what's possible in the world. Sometimes they're conscious, sometimes they're not. But whether they're conscious or not, the world is always telling us what our true beliefs are. The quality of our relationships, the kind of job we have, the kind of people that we draw into our lives, all our abundance, our healing, our health. All of these are examples of the field mirroring to us what it is that we claim to be true in our deepest, sometimes subconscious beliefs. All right, so we've just covered a lot of ground right there. Let me just kind of summarize that. The field is three things. It is the container for all things. It's the bridge between our inner and our outer worlds. And it is the mirror in the world around us for what we believe to be true, consciously and subconsciously, from within. So with that, let's take this one step further. There now is no longer any controversy as to whether or not the field exists and whether or not we're connected. The question is, how deeply are we connected? What does this field really mean for us? And this is where one of the most innovative experiments in recent years did, in fact, make mainstream science, mainstream journals. And it happened relatively recently. In an experiment that was performed at the University of Geneva in Switzerland, a scientist named Nicholas Gisin did this experiment. He reported it to over 3,400 journalists, educators, scientists, and engineers in more than 40 countries on a Friday afternoon, July 25th, 1997. The experiment is called the twin photon experiment, and it goes like this. Photons are what atoms are made of. Photons are light particles that the stuff of this world is made of. So it made tremendous sense that the researchers would want to do their experiment on the stuff our world is made of to see how that stuff is influenced by the field. So here's what they did. They took a single photon, some really sophisticated technology, allowed them to isolate a single photon, and they wanted to have two identical photons, identical properties. So they took the one single photon and they split it in two so that each would have identical properties. It used to be one photon, now we have two. They placed these two photons into a device, a specialized device that allowed them to shoot the photons, particles of light, if you can think of it in your mind this way, to shoot the particles of light through fiber optic cables in opposite directions from where they began. So if you can think of, here's the gadget, here's a little box, two photons, one photon is going in this direction, one photon is going in this direction. Each of the fiber optic cables was 7 miles long. So when the twin photons reached their target, their destination on either edge of this experiment, they were a total of 14 miles apart. And this is where the real experiment began. Because what the scientists began to do was they began to influence, the word they used was tickle. They began to tickle one photon in one place. And they were able to observe the other photon 14 miles away to see what might be happening in that place. And what they found made no sense to the science as it had been embraced where the field does not exist. What they found is that when they disturbed or tickled one of the twin photons in one place, the other one 14 miles away, it acted like it had the exact same experience, even though it was not directly being touched by the scientists. And they said, well, how can that be? When they would force one of the photons to rotate in a particular direction, the other one 14 miles away rotated in exactly the same direction. When they would charge, electrically charge, or remove a charge from a photon in one place, the same thing would happen without them doing it in the other place. They said, what does this mean? What is this telling us right now? This is what was reported to the journalists and was reported in the mainstream publications. The experiment was reported. The implications are where the controversy begins. Why? Why was one photon 14 miles away being influenced by another one when they were not physically connected? So this is where the idea of this field comes in. The fact of the connection, the term that is now given, a new term had to be coined. The term is called entanglement. Entanglement. And what entanglement means is summarized in the journal, the scientific journal that reported on the experiments. I'm going to read it to you word for word, just so we have the exact language. It suggests that once matter is joined physically Once matter is joined physically, because those two photons used to be one photon, it remains linked energetically even after the photons are split. Even when they are no longer physically touching, they remain energetically linked regardless of their location. Here's why this is important.
Okay, you guys heard that? He said once those energy particles, photons, are divided, right? They're still connected to each other regardless of the distance. And remember I said in the beginning of this discussion, right? The first rule of natural nature is preservation of self and kind. And the reason why we taught that is because you are your kind. In order for you to exist, your mother and father had to exist. And remember, I said you're nothing but a clone of your mother and your father. Your father gave up a cell, a sperm cell. Your mother gave up her egg cell. Those two cells fused together to create you. So you're the essence of them. And so you have the access to genetic memory of your parents. You have the genetic memory of their parents. You have the genetic memory of their parents, and so on and so forth. Meaning you're connected to everyone in your bloodline. Now, the science is catching up to a reality that we've been teaching for thousands of years. Now they're proving these realities scientifically. And so if you notice in the experiment, they took one photon and they split the photon and they separated the photons, right? And so what that says is that they're the same particle, which means it has the same morphic resonance. Each race on Earth had their own unique morphic resonance, and you're connected to your race. Now this is going into why we didn't mix our bloodline, because when you do that, you take on a different energy field, a different morphic field, and it creates static and it cuts you off from your ancestors. And that's what's happened to us. So it's important to know. Let's see. Question. Akeem, what's that about? I'm not sure what the question is referring to. What's that about? So if you could be more explicit, I can address your question. Okay. And the zero reference point, yeah, that's Nanya. They call it 0 point energy. The Mukasu calls it, but you know, we did a thing on that one. If you guys watch, I talk about this the what they call the field of existence, right? The energy field of existence that scientists now know and understand. All of existence is based on this energy field, this morphic frequency, and a morphic resonant field. That's really what it is. That's why you hear me talk about it so much. This morphic field. It's very important for you guys to watch it. And let me repeat this again. Or let me say this. Guys, even though you guys are live for the classes in the chat, I highly recommend you guys rewatching these discussions, because I go through a lot of points, okay? And it is important that you guys revisit these discussions, because I noticed you guys ask questions that we've talked about and I've answered. That's why I highly recommend watching our lectures, even if you're live here, more than once, guys. So it's very important for me to say that, okay? And that's for people who are watching the recordings of these discussions. Always watch these discussions more than once. So let's go on. Question. What is the first step towards building positive relationships? Answer. Our first relationship is with blood family, and our second relationship is with our race who share the same cultural ideals. Family is first because bloodline relatives are clones of each other and think closely alike. But we live in a world where families sometimes are the worst adversaries. What we must realize that our relationships are based on rule 1, and only those who are intelligent will comprehend this reality. We must have a meeting of the minds that Wu-Sabat and not Western culture is the best way for self and kind, right? And so I said, let me say that again. We must have a meeting of the minds that Wu-Sabat and not Western culture is the best way of life for ourselves and our kind. Our culture is the best way for us. Our culture is the best way for us. Western culture has done nothing but give us chaos for the last 500 years. We've been under its thumb, right? And that's what we're trying to teach, guys. So important that we get this. Okay, question. What is Ubuntu? Ubuntu is an African cultural principle that teaches that all Africans are from the same creative source, and that this fact obligates us to respect each other, to serve each other, and to be thoughtful of each other. Ubuntu made us aware that we share the earth as one people who should not exploit each other for profit or self-gain as we see in the world today. Ubuntu is why in African culture before colonization 500 years ago, we lived of, for, and by each other with the understanding that life is a precious gift to be respected by all, right? This is our culture, and this is something the master teacher has been stressing from day one. We must learn to live of, for, and by each other in harmony with one another. We must rebuild our relationships. That is where our power is, guys. That's why the disagreeable one, he how can I say? He is afraid of anyone who they see building a strong organization, because he knows people are the power. People are the power. Money's not the power. People are the power. People are the power. And it's not just about people coming together, but it's about people coming together under the same cultural ideals. When we come together under the same cultural ideals, then we want to do the same things, work together on the same objectives. We share the same principles, and that's what they fear. So that's why our job as Sabians is to spread the news, because that's how we fight Leviathan, by spreading and teaching others to embrace our original culture. Wu-Sabat. Question: What would be the benefit of strong relationships of the African race? Answer: the benefits of a strong African relationships would mean we would do things that would change our lifestyle for the better, such as, imagine, A, Black women stop spending billions of dollars yearly on synthetic hair care and poison beauty products, and use that money to educate Black children by investing in schools focused on teaching true Black history and proper economics. Imagine we start doing that, guys, right? B, Black people stop spending money going out to eat. Stop spending money overeating. Stop spending money feeding your children flesh and poison candy, and use the savings to invest in Black-owned businesses. Imagine the hundreds of millions of dollars we can save by doing those things, guys. And C, Black people buy Black to promote economic growth, to use that money to invest in Black communities, which would be the beginning of us becoming independent of Western culture. So here's the deal. They say just Black people here in the United States, we produce over $1 trillion, right, in income. But just about every dollar we make, we give it right back to a foreigner. we don't circulate our money at all. Now the question is, why don't we do that? And the reason why we don't do that, that's why I said coming together is not enough. You have to come together under the same cultural ideals. That's why we can't come together. That's why we can't create change. Because even when we do come together as a people, we have all these different cultural beliefs on what we should and should not be doing. And that's why nothing we do lasts, because it's not enough for us who share the same cultural goals. And that's why we try to teach these things in the culture of Wu-Sabat, our cultural goals and purpose, and the benefit of being a Sabian, and what we can do if we harness our own personal power. We have the power to do these things. We have the power to change our conditions, but we have to use it. We don't have to be begging white people for reparations. We don't have to be asking them for justice. We don't have to be asking them for anything. All we really need to do is focus on each other. That's not to say I'm not saying I don't support the concept of reparations. I just don't support the concept of begging white people for something that they clearly show they're not interested in doing. And why? Why bother? Why waste your time when we can't control them? We can't force them to be just, right? So why waste your time? What we can control is each other. We can control ourselves to do for ourselves, to help ourselves. This is something the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been teaching for eons, to do for self. Marcus Garvey. do for self. Okay. And we, as you know, the master teacher obviously is followed in suit. We must do for self. We have the power to do it, but it is our negative mind that's keeping our people divided, guys. So, question: are the goals above realistic? Yes, provided that we begin to re-educate Black people on how to overcome their negative mind that prevents us from unifying to solve our own problems. It is the negative mind that stops all positive growth. Ego, doubt, fear, jealousy, hate, envy, ignorance, anger, lust, self-righteousness are all principles of the negative mind. They're all principles of the negative mind. And we all must strive to conquer these energies within ourselves, right? You know, we're not going to reach our goals until we're able to conquer these energies that are keeping our people in a negative state. You know, it's that's our ultimate challenge. Now, something that the master teacher has been doing for years, like we, you know, I don't have it. We put out like several books. The master teacher, he put out one book called the Neatness and Purity book. It was another book we put out called the Family Guidebook. And those books were about culture, things, how we should treat each other, how the males should treat each other, how the females in our culture should treat each other, how we should treat each other in our relationships, right? We you know, the master teacher has written quite a few books on that subject matter. In fact, the most current book on that subject matter is let me see. I want to try to bring that up. So, because I want you guys to be aware of some of the literature we put out there that deals with building better relationships, right? Because that's what this discussion is all about. Let's see if I can find this book right here. This is Actual Facts number 23. Now, this particular actual fact, if you go to the end of this book, the ending of this book, it has a bunch of core principles of how our females should conduct themselves, how the males should conduct themselves, how we should deal with relationships, right? How we should deal with children, okay? These are core principles in how we develop and interface in our relationships. This is something that we as Black people are lacking. We don't have core principles anymore on how we should interface with each other, right? And let's see, question. I'm the only one from my mom and dad. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, all older. They are totally different from me. How can I fellowship with family that don't share the same parents and we all get along? How can I fellowship with family that don't share the same parents and we all get along? Well, you know, I come from a big family, and my 2 brothers are the ones who accepted Wu-Sabat. Right. So me and my 2 brothers, but you know, I have a sister. She didn't accept it, or my parents or anything like that. They're receptive. My family has been receptive to the information, but obviously they haven't chose to live the culture. So you know, your family also becomes, what we teach is those who share the same cultural ideals becomes your family as well. You know, Black people as a race are all connected by blood anyway. So all Black people are family. Each race is one big family, right? Each race. And so everyone's connected, but you have your immediate family, right? Your mother, father, siblings. And so that's one level of family. And then you have your outer family, which is your race itself. So if your immediate family doesn't connect with the same culture, then you definitely have your outer family, which is what Sabian is. Everyone who chooses to become a Sabian becomes your new family. Because family is blood and spiritual, right? And as Sabians, we don't have the same blood link, but we definitely have the same spiritual link. And so spiritual link is spiritual link, which makes us family, and so that's very important. We do try. We always recommend people to try the best to help family members and to be patient with family members. But anyone who comes to Wu-Sabat, you come here because of a spiritual calling, right? That's why you choose to be a Sabian, is because your inner spirit, your intuition is what leads you to this path, and so not everybody can lead this path, because everybody have their own personal journey in this life cycle of what direction they want to lead their lives in. And we have to respect that. That's what happens when, like, let's say you resurrect, right? And your other family members, they reincarnate. You now become the ancestor that they have to make contact with. Okay, so all of the ancestors that we're teaching, you're supposed to make contact with, the positive ones, they're your past family members. You don't remember them because we have reincarnated. So we might have reincarnated 20 times away from that family member. But when you resurrect, you'll meet that family member that you'll remember them, that you knew them 1,000 years ago, or you knew them 500 years ago or something. And they've been trying to communicate with you. And that's what you're going to do when you resurrect. You're going to have family members, right, who now they have children, and their children will have children. So you're going to have that bloodline on earth, and you're going to be trying to help that bloodline, to try to communicate with that bloodline, that's left on earth. And that's kind of how it works, And so because as blood family, as spiritual family, as a racial family, we're always connected to each other, regardless of the dimension that you exist on, or regardless of the universe that you exist on. That's important to know. Okay. Question: can you love from afar? Yeah, the masters are in other universes and they're still connected to us. The masters are in different universes and they're still connected to us. These beings right here, the Riskians, these beings, they travel the omniverse. And these beings are connected to us, and they took an interest in us to help us. And they're responsible. These beings, the Riskians, are responsible for maintaining balance in the omniverse. That's how powerful these beings are. And so, but they took the time, and each one, that's why the master teacher came. One of them incarnated just to help us to re-educate us about existence itself. So, and they're only doing that because of love, because of ashak, we say. That's why they're doing it, and they have their names right down here. So you have the master, Yanun, and then the first one here is Razun, Razun. The middle one, Zanun, and the third one is Zakum, right? So you have Razum, Zanun, Zakum, Yanun, and you can actually chant that and communicate with them. You could develop a ritual to communicate with them by chanting their name. So you have Yanun, Razum, Zanun, Zakum, and you visualize these beings. You visualize them. And you can make contact with them. They hear our chants. They're paying attention to us. And so these are some of the things you do, to develop. That's very important. And let's see. Can you all, or will you get love back would be up to the deliverer? Okay, that's why we must walk and live in love, because we will connect again. I understand that. Yeah, I mean, all is ashak, right? All is a shock, and that's and our whole culture is based around tapping into a shock. That's what our whole goals are. And so I just want to repeat to you guys again, when you're doing spiritual work, you're doing it for the purpose of wanting to help, to serve. So when you look at the Riskians here, their whole job, these beings, their job is just to serve, to help, right? They live based on Ma'at, maintaining balance throughout the omniverse, okay? Because the whole goal of Ma'at is order. The whole goal of Ma'at is order. And you can't have order unless things are balanced out. And you can't have balance, right? Unless things are you have just, things are just, right? Justice requires in order to have balance. And you can't have justice unless, you have righteousness. And righteousness is being able to make the right decisions. And you make the right decisions by acquiring the wisdom of the Hu-Tree. The wisdom of the Hu-Tree is how you learn the principles of natural nature, the rules of natural nature on how to make decisions. This is the education that our people are lacking. This is the education our people have to be re-educated about, how they should be properly making decisions. Because in Western culture is not going to teach them none of these things. They're pushing all kinds of weird things on our people now. You have the gay agenda, all of our people being infused with the Caucasian pushing, this. Let me do it like this. The Caucasian pushes, his culture is all about you making the decisions based on how you feel to be happy, right? And that's what he pushes. He doesn't teach people that you're supposed to make decisions based on what's the right thing to do. It's not about being happy. It's about doing the right thing. And by doing the right thing, that should make you happy. Okay? But he doesn't do that. And so our people are making all kinds of life choice decisions because they're saying, oh, this is me. This is how I feel. This makes me happy. This is who I am. I'm going to be the best me. That's 6 ether doctrine, guys. Okay? In fact, the Luciferian doctrine teaches do as thou wilt. Do as thou wilt. That's a 6 ether Luciferian doctrine. You cannot just do as you want because the universe has principles and rules of the universe, and you have to be in harmony with those principles. So you have to do according to the wills of the universal forces itself, not what you want all the time. That's why you have to balance out pain and pleasure. You could do things that give you pleasure, but at the same time has to be balanced off through work and labor, which requires pain and sacrifice. You have to balance it out. It's not about pleasure all the time. You can't do all that you want all the time that you want. That's not existence, but that's what they teach. It's crazy. Question. I'll connect with them. Thank you. Okay. Are Sabians the only culture that practice Wu-Sabat? Well, that's what Wu-Sabat means. Wu-Sabat means that you are Sabian, right? And vice versa. So to be a Sabian means that you're living the culture of Wu-Sabat, the culture of being in harmony with nature once again, right? And so that's what it means to be a Sabian, one who is in harmony with natural nature. Sabian, that's another word of saying sun culture. You're living in harmony with the sons of the universe because it is the sons of the universe that grew the universe, right? And we come from those sons. We come from those sons. The sons of the universe is what grew the universe. And we all come from the sons, and so that's extremely important that we identify with the forces that we come from, guys. But this whole thing with relationships, we in Western culture, they gave us a warped perception of what relationships is all about. Especially when you have the male and female dynamic. That's a very important. Think about this, guys. They said since the 70s, since they made abortion illegal, unfortunately, Black women have aborted over 20 million babies. Since they made abortion legal, Black women have aborted over 20 million babies. That is insane. So what does that say? That what that says is that our people, male and female, are engaging in sexual relationships for pure pleasure without thinking about the responsibilities of that behavior. That's irrational behavior. We as African people, we used to know better than that. We did not engage in the sex act for pure pleasure because there was a science, and we're going to do lectures on this, the science of sex, not the pleasure of sex. Western culture teaches you the pleasures of sex and never teaches you about the science of sex. There's great responsibility in the sex act. And when you start engaging in sex purely for pleasure and ignore the science of it, the end result is you degenerate your bloodline. This is why we're having such a hard time. We literally degenerated our bloodline, and so we started producing children who are not intelligent because we forgot the science of sex. Remember, when the female gets pregnant, a spirit force comes into that child. And we used to understand, we used to know which spirits to come in to incarnate into a body, into a child. Now we don't know that science anymore. So you can get a child who's a pure demon. We got a lot of pure black devils running around here. And the only reason why we got all these black devils because we engaged in a sex act, not understanding the science of it. And we're just doing it for pure pleasure. And we degenerating our bloodline. And we're wondering why we're killing each other, raping each other, robbing each other, and doing all the bad things to each other. Because there's a science to it. And that demon ain't going to teach you that. The white man is never going to teach you that there's a science of sex. You know, we used to know these things, guys. Now we don't know it. You know, and it's extremely important to re-educate ourselves. Sex is a powerful weapon. Sex is the second most powerful force in all of existence. I repeat, sex is the second most powerful force in all of existence. The most powerful force in existence is the mind, because nothing could exist without the mental. It is the mind, the mind that grew all of existence. So that's the most powerful force. The second force is the sex force, because the sex force is what guarantees reproduction of all species in existence, whether it's asexual or bisexual or just sexual, right? Two, asexual is reproducing on your own, and sexual is having a partner to reproduce. That is the force of nature. The third most powerful force in existence is the death force, right? The more sex you have equals the more life you have. The more life you have, the more death you have. Death is personified through life. And that's why sex was sacred, because we knew you start producing more children, that means you're going to produce more death forces in the atmosphere. That's why when you get like the Redskins don't have children, guys. These Redskins you're looking at, they don't have children. They're beyond that. Remember, guys, children is just a cloning process. The reason why we started having children was because we were on planets where our bodies decay, and so we were reproduced. We were copying ourselves. That's why when your child is born, your child's supposed to have all your memories. That's we use it to extend our life cycles. That was our process of cloning, believe it or not. Somebody have a question. Are Sabines the only? Yeah, okay, got that. T Tiger, remember Allison when connecting? Oh, okay, okay, got it. Can't be forced back. It shouldn't be. What'd you say? Okay. Yeah, guys. So, that's very important. I wanted to get that out to you guys, and we will do discussions on this whole thing about our sexual relationships. But you know, we did that lecture on the African, what's that, the African science of existence, and we talked about the sex force. You know, it's very important that you guys begin to understand that, and I understand, because they teach us in this culture, you know, especially our women get caught up in wanting to have a baby, wanting to have a family, and and they teach our young girls to have a baby doll. but it's not a game. It's not a joke. And we go into this Barbie doll mentality of relationships, and we're wondering why the relationships don't last, because what the Caucasian taught you as a relationship is false. It's a violation of nature. We don't behave. We're supposed to behave like that. You know how many things we're doing in relationships you're not supposed to do? Like, for instance, the male and female are supposed to be sleeping in the same bedroom, but we all do it. The male and female do not supposed to be sleeping in the same bedroom, but we all do it. And so there's tons of stuff we're doing relationship wise that you don't supposed to do spiritually. Because understand this, the male and the female are natural opposites. They're natural opposites. And so I told you guys before, the female, female produces what they call a centrifugal energy. And it's a pushing energy. It's a radiating energy. It's the same energy of the earth. That's why the earth releases life, right? Grass, plants, trees comes out of the earth. It's an energy force that comes out of the earth. It radiates out. And that's the same energy of the female. She releases life through her womb, right? And so if you notice, women, they love to how can I say, what's the best word to explain that? When you go to a female's house, like you have a lot of women that they love to decorate, right? They love to show beauty. They love to do gardening. They love to do, painting their homes and making sure their house is perfectly designed. Females, they radiate out their energy. That's why a woman is always concerned about how she looks, right? How, making sure she has the right makeup on, the right dress, the right everything, the right perfume. The female is always thinking about how she radiates her presence to those around her. Okay. And that's extremely important. That's the energy of the female. Now, the energy of the male is the opposite. The energy of the male is a magnetic field. He pulls in energy. So where the female radiates energy, he pulls in energy. And that's called the centrifugal force. It's what the sun does. The sun pulls the planets into its gravitational field, right? It pulls it into its magnetic field. The sun does that to the planets. And so the male energy is pulling in energy, so that as the female is radiating energy, the male is pulling in energy. So it's a pushing and pulling motion. And those are also clashing. Those energy forces are also clashing at the same time because they're two different energy forces. And that's one of the reasons why male and female shouldn't be sleeping together, because they clash. There have been incidents where a spouse will wake up and they've unfortunately have injured or harmed or even killed their other spouse. It's been known to happen. People sleeping together because those energies clash. And you can have a bad dream or something. You can get caught into your spouse's dreams and vice versa. And so these are spiritual concepts that the Caucasian don't even know anything about, and they don't have the knowledge to teach it. These are things we used to know. And we don't know these things no more. Question. Peace. What do you think about the terms alpha, beta, and sigma males? What do you think about terms? You talking about the what is that? Those what they call it? The fraternities? Are you talking about the fraternities? Is that what you're asking about? I'm not sure. If that's where your question's coming from. Is it coming from fraternities? I need a little bit more insight about. What'd you say? Oh yeah, fraternity. Yeah, I need a little bit more insight, Kev. I need some more insight about the question to understand. Alpha male. Okay. Alpha, beta, and sigma males. I never heard of that. I heard of alpha males. Yeah, I've heard of that. Dominant male energy. Okay. Got it. And so he says, Pete, what do you think about? Okay, so what I was just explaining about the male energy, right? So the male energy is a magnetic force that pulls energy, because keep in mind the universe is releasing energy and attracting the energy at the same time. It's two different forces, and so that's what we call the masculine and feminine forces of existence. Okay, and so the masculine force, as I said, is an energy that pulls in forces, and the feminine force is an energy that releases the forces. It's supposed to be in harmony and at balance, not dominant. I repeat, our energy is supposed to be in harmony and balance with each other, not dominant. See, one of the problems of that we're dealing with in relationships, why the relationships go so sour between the male and female, is because you have a dominant personality. Or like men think they own women and women think they own men. Like when they get married, they think they own each other, and you don't own each other, guys. The whole marriage, the whole point of our marriage, that's something you got to understand in our relationships. The whole point of our marriage is the male and the female are supposed to be partners. The male and female are supposed to be partners. The male doesn't own the woman doesn't own the man. But that's what they teach in this culture. So the guy comes home, sees his wife in bed with some other guy, and now he's going to kill the both of them, or vice versa. That's called possessiveness, and that's not love. That's insanity. You don't own another human being. Your partner is just that, your partner. You don't own that person. But they teach that. That's why these women are always talking about, well, I'm getting a divorce. He cheated on me. Okay, guys, listen. This whole concept that they teach, our women and men about cheating, guys, first of all, none of that is of our culture. That's why I said our whole concept of relationships is completely twisted and upside down. It goes to Kev. Beta males are nice guys who get taken advantage of by women. Okay. And Sigma males are men that are low key, but in control of themselves. I never heard of them. I never heard of those terms, Kev. That's interesting. But okay, those are personality traits that you're talking about within the male, right? And those personality traits are coming from different spirit forces that are in those particular individuals. Now, when I'm trying to teach and what we teach as 9 ether beings, we have a distinct personality. If you look at this picture I keep showing you guys of the Riskians, right? Okay, so you have Razun, Zanun, and Zakun. If you notice, they all look the same because they share the same thoughts and mentality. We become, when you connect, when you raise up and become, this is what a real alpha male, if you want to talk about an alpha male, these beings are in harmony with the universe itself. And they all share the same goals and ideals and objectives, at least the positive ones, right? Because you have positive Riskians and you do have negative Riskians who are in opposition to them. And that's a whole nother science. The way the Riskians live, their opposition is outside of them. Where human beings, your negativity is inside you. Those 6 ether forces are inside you. So you got to overcome those 6 ether spirits that's inside you. With the Riskians, the way they live, it's just the opposite for them. Their negative counterpart is on the outside as another being, and they have to conquer one another. The positive will either overcome the negative, or the negative will overcome the positive. When the positive overcomes the negative, they raise up in degrees in mentality. That's how they elevate in their existence. Their level of existence is a lot different from ours. Okay, and how they exist, how they live. Let's see. I wear a gold ankh as a tool around my neck to remember my new connection to African culture, spirituality. Is it wrong to wear an ankh? I'm 2 years into my disconnecting from Christianity. That's what's up. No, there's nothing wrong with wearing the ankh. I recommend getting an ankh tweed, right? Because it stands for the second resurrection. But it's better than a cross. Don't wear them darn crosses. Remember, the cross is a symbol of death. The cross is a symbol of death. As the comedians would talk about, if Jesus was killed by Uzi, would people be wearing an Uzi around their neck? You know, I'm like, that's what the Romans used. The Romans used a darn cross to kill people. You know, they wearing that around their neck. No, guys, no, the ankh is a known symbol of life in ancient Kemet. It was the symbol of transformation from this world to the next world. So that's important to remember. Question: should we have separate bathrooms too? That's a good question. I don't think that is necessary, whether or not to have separate bathrooms or not. You know, I mean, it's the way they build these houses, right? The way they build this house. First, their whole building structure. We wouldn't build nothing the way they build. That's what I'm saying. Everything the Caucasian does is really adverse because they build they build these homes with these massive bathrooms, right? So you have the massive bedroom and it has its own bathroom. Back in the day when we didn't have that kind of money, you had a house like that. You had one bathroom and everyone shared it. So, that's kind of how it was. But in our culture, guys, the males, and originally in our culture, the males and the females used to live separate. The males and the females used to live separate. They're not supposed to be together. Listen, the black woman and the black man come from two different star systems. The black woman comes from Sirius or Septu, and the black man comes from Orion. So we come from different. In fact, the black female, she rules that whole star system. The black woman rules Septu, and the black male rules Orion. And the black woman is in charge of this planet Earth. The black woman is in charge of the planet Earth. That's why we're called Sabians, because of the fact that Sabian means you come from Septu or Sirius. I repeat, for all you guys out there, it is the black females from Sirius who incarnated here, and we as males, they came here and we came through the female. So the woman is the one who's giving birth to us. We come through the black woman, and the black woman comes from that star system, Septu or Sirius. And so this is the female's planet. Our job is the male force that came here. We came here to assist the woman in ruling. We got ourselves conquered by these demons. And we fell. Black men, you fell the black woman. We felt her. We felt her. And only in it. But here's the thing: only the black woman can fix this problem, guys. Only the black woman can fix this problem. Why do you think the Caucasian, he spends all his time seducing our women? Because he knows you get the woman, you got the nation. I repeat, you get the female, you got the nation. You get the female, you got the nation. Everyone knows this, and we got to get our women away from the white man. We're not going to resurrect because the woman is the one who's giving birth to all our children. If you don't get your women on your side, there's nothing. We'll never grow as a people. We'll never grow. We'll never grow. Our women have to embrace this doctrine, this information. They have to decide they want to give up European culture and come on to, their bloodline of African culture. I mean, that's just the reality of it. What if you're teaching Wu-Sabat and propagating books, and most of your customers may be females? How would you handle as a Sabian masculine self-control? What tools or methods? Okay. Our women are not sex objects. Our women are not sex objects. Our women is not sex objects. Sex is sacred. Sex is sacred. I know there's this insane demon puts sex everywhere in TV commercials, advertising. I told you that before, right? Pornography makes more money than Hollywood. So they're constantly pushing the sex force on us, and our men are being seduced by the sex spirit forces. And so they're seeing our women as sex objects. And so our men are constantly frequenting, the strip clubs and so on and so forth. And you guys can't control yourself. You first got to realize that they're doing that to us. They're making us sexualized like that. As African men, stop seeing your women. Those are your mothers. Those are your daughters. Those are your wives. And you don't want your wife on display for everyone. So we have to start seeing our women as our precious gift, because I'm keep telling you guys, this organization ain't going nowhere unless our women gravitate to it. I repeat, our organization is not no organization is not going anywhere unless the Black woman accepts it, and the Black woman accepts who she is, that she is the goddess and the mother of all living on earth. The Black woman. I repeat, the Black woman. Bottom line, they already proved that scientifically. Everyone comes from the Black woman. That's a genetic fact. And it's a reality fact, because ain't no man giving birth to anything. It's the woman giving birth. So we all come from the female. And so as males, we have to learn to respect and protect our women. It's the only option. We're not going nowhere until we fix that, And so, brothers, we have to, we got to realize when we start thinking of sex, that's put in, those are spirit forces. They put that in us. They socialize us to think like that, and we have to stop seeing our females like that. Okay, we have to stop seeing our women like that, and that's a whole. Like I said, we're going to do a discussion on the science of sex versus the pleasures of sex. We're gonna talk about that, because that's this whole sex energy is controlling every aspect of our lives, and it's destroying us. It's destroying us. I'm like, we have so many Black children who are orphans, who have no families, or if you look at the public school system. Go into the public school system here in the United States, and you find out most of the children in the school system come from single parent homes. Predominantly, it's just the mom and no men there. That's insanity. And why is that? Because our people don't understand the concept of relationships. How many, majority, myself included, majority of our children being born, so many of our children being born are really mistakes. Majority of our children being born is not because the two individuals came together because they wanted to produce a child. The child is being born because the parent just wanted to have sex, and the end result is the child, and it's destroying that behavior. It's destroying us as a people, and that's why you have all these broken homes everywhere, because two individuals came together who really don't want to be together, and they just came together for the sex act. And who suffers? The child. And I tell you, women out there, you women, you're the ones who control this. Because guess what? You're the ones that you have to carry the baby for 9 months. The man could get you pregnant and he's gone. So who becomes more responsible now? The person who's left with the child, the female. And that's why women are running around angry at men. Because the men are engaging in these relationships and they're leaving. But here's the point. The point is this. Sex is not a joke. That's not a game, guys. And you women are the ones holding the bag, and our children are suffering for it. So the female has to be more responsible, because she's going to bear the most burden. So our women, you guys must decide. You got to stop opening up your legs just because a guy looks pretty and sounds nice. You guys, our women, you guys have to learn to be extremely more selective. Because unfortunately, our brothers are part of a culture that has not taught them to be responsible. Look how many black men give in to the white man. Just allow him to rule themselves without any real strategies of how for us to break independence. Black men have become so comfortable with white men ruling them. So that's a telltale sign to you women that so many of our brothers are not responsible. Now, who can change that? Who can change it is you women. You can change it because you have the daughters and you have the sons, and it is in your power to properly educate those children. To educate that boy what his responsibilities are, and to educate your daughters, and this is key, to educate your daughters to stop giving in sexually to these guys. I can't stress this stuff enough, y'all. It's destroying us, this behavior. This behavior is destroying us, and we have to we gotta overcome it, man. We gotta overcome that. This is how they're getting us. You know, they was talking about, and before I'm about to close out, it's about that time, but I want to say, you know, they talk about what's that guy Nas X, the rapper, and he's supposed to be gay, and they had him on the BET Awards, and I saw clips of it. You know, I don't really watch BET, whatever, but I saw clips of it, and because I think one of you guys mentioned it before in the chat a couple of weeks ago about his performance, and that, you know, I never saw it. I didn't even know about it at the time, and I just recently found out about it. So he's prancing around, you know, and he's you know, performing and stuff like that, and so. Guys, understand this, right? The whole gay culture, this whole gay thing that they're pushing, right? Predominantly is all about lust and desire of one can't control their lust. Now, there's a science, you know, and this is not to talk about because this is a very involved subject matter. You know, when you talk about the gay culture, because the true gay culture is a spiritual thing. I repeat, the true gay culture is a spiritual thing, and that only exists because we violated the sex law. So what's happening? What's happening is that the females giving birth, right, and the baby is a male body, but you have a female spirit incarnating into that male body, and vice versa. She has a female body she's giving birth to, but a male spirit is incarnating into that body, and that's what produced gay people in our society, right? And that's because we violated the sex laws and we lost the science of how to manage spirits incarnating into us. Before then, we didn't have these issues. When you lost your spiritual science, now all kinds of spirits are incarnating into our women. So that's why you having individuals being born and they have the desire to be with the opposite sex. So that's one thing. But here's the other thing. The other thing is this. The Caucasian as a race is a gay race. Their energy, their spirit force is a bisexual force, spirit force. The Caucasian, original spirit force of the Caucasian is a bisexual spirit force. That's why you see it so prominent in their culture. When you look at the Romans and you look at the Greeks, you see that prominent in their culture. That's not an African thing because we don't have, our spirit forces weren't naturally bisexual. Okay? And that gets into a whole nother level of discussion when it comes to us, because we do have a part of our culture and our ancestry that we have hemorphidites and hermaphrodites that are originally the black woman and the black man. We originally come from hemorphidites and hermaphrodites. What is that? A hemorphodite is a male who has both sex organs, and a hermaphrodite is a female with both sex organs. In fact, Akhenaten was a hemorphodite, and Nefertiti, his wife, was a hermaphrodite. That's a whole nother level of science about our origins when it comes to the human bodies. But the Caucasian is using the gay agenda to push lust. He's using the gay agenda to push lust on our people. And he's trying to make gay as a choice, not something that someone is spiritually gay, meaning they incarnate, you have the opposite spirit force incarnate into the body. No, he's trying to make it just an option. You know, one day I want to, you know, female, I want to be with women. Next day I want to be with men or next day I want to be with women again because that man didn't treat me right. That is not what y'all supposed to be doing. And he's trying to confuse the heck out of our children to mess up their decision-making skills on how to choose a partner. But this is a lot. Covering oneself is a super important when building true relation. Yeah. But guys, you know, let me digress. This, like I said, this goes into a whole nother discussion when you talk about relationships and the sex force and all that stuff. We'll get into that because it's so important to address that. But I wanted to at least touch on that because that has everything to do with our relationships. Our relationships are messed up because we're violating the science of sex. Excuse me. That's why our relationships are messed up, because we're violating the science of sex. And so you guys out there, you got to realize when you're having those strong sexual desires, those are spirit forces urging you to disrespect our women. And our women, you guys out there, stop choosing every Tom, Dick, and Harry, you know, that comes to you just because he might have money or whatever. Our women, unfortunately, they choose males because of economics. And I understand that because that's how they set this system up. But it's hurting us, our decisions, that you guys are choosing men who don't even want to stay with you. And trust me, if you investigated that guy before you related to him sexually, you'd have found out he's not responsible. So do your homework. And that's one thing that we teach. Do your homework before you engage in anyone in any kind of relationship, especially sex. And let me say this. One more thing. In our culture, once you engage with a person sexually, remember, your genes record everything. So the minute you do that, you tie into that person's spirit bloodline and you're linked with them forever. So, for instance, like in our culture, our women only supposed to have one sexual partner. In our culture, our females are only supposed to have one sexual partner. Our women supposed to only have one sexual partner because, when you take on more than one male, you're taking on different spirit forces, and that alters the female's her energy fields. It alters it. It messes it up. All of the different male energies. Again, I'm gonna. Let's get to our closing. We'll touch this subject a whole nother time. And until then, next week, right? We'll be back. Nakuk, Ashak, and Kum. I love you all. Nakuk, Ashak, and Kum. Right? That means I love you all in our Lahaj language, Sabian. Nakuk, Ashak, and Kum. Remember that. Abdul Kalam Namasat, Ubazun, Amag, Kasem, and Afar Papa Ut. Anuki Jawef Pa Ashuk M Papa Ut. Wu Kale Ashuk Kawun Jawef Naya. Anuki Kasamun M Papa Ut. Wu Papa Ut Kawun Kasamun M Naya. Anuki Wahu Ama Papa Ut. Wu Papa Ut Kawun Wahu Ama Naya. Nakuk Najor. Nakuk Kador Naju Amag Kasamun M Papa Ut. Wu Khabu Amag Shakasun. Nakuk Kador Kawan Kalab Pafaf Nakuk the Ya Jawep Papa Ut. Amad Wasu Amad the Yani Kawun Lake Bakui Jawep Papa Ut. Anuki Yabab Bi Nafasni. Papa Ut Kawun. Anuki. Papa Ut Kador. Nakuk Kador. Papa Ut Amul. Nakuk Amul. Lahahum Manahnun. Layahum Manahnun. Ahumata Karahum. Ahumata Karakum. Ahumata Karanun. Ahumata Jawafnaya. Ahumata Naya Wu Anuki Hum. Ye Ashuk Re'e. Asmua Jayenu. Ye Unataru Afuknun. Anunata Kharaukum. Ye unataro afuknun. Afuknun, afuknun. Ye unataro nun. Anun. Atun. Atun. Amun. Jednafor. Wadu Yasar. Until next week, I will see you and be blessed and be safe, guys. Be safe. Definitely be safe. Wadu.